Hey, it's Osman with House Einstein, and I'm in front of 1615 Gillaspie. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. It's on the market for $1,050,000. I think it's been on the market a while. It's got some deferred maintenance, it looks like, from the photos online, but I think this could be a good fit for our buyers, so I suggested we take a look at it for them before they fly in for the weekend. And one of the biggest benefits is right there, that you are steps from the park. You can't quite see it from here, but it's right past that line of bushes. And Harlow Platte is a spectacular park, and it's adjacent to the South Boulder Rec Center, so it's a great fit for families. All right, so I have not been in this house before. We're gonna go ahead and tour it as I'm walking through it. The team's here today. I asked them to join us to join me instead of our regular weekly office meeting, and so you may see them in various video shots, but we'll try to give you a good perspective on this house, and why don't we go take a look. Okay, so we are in the driveway. The first thing that pops out is that it looks like the corner of the driveway is dropped, because usually the garage door is not what's dropping. It's machined, it's stamped metal. So when you see that sort of drop and the dried paint, and already we're seeing lots of signs of deferred maintenance. When you see that kind of drop, it's something to look more closely at with an inspector. Some signs of paint peeling. And looks like the patio to the front entrance has dropped. And although the architecture is really interesting, I think it would look a lot better without the wood siding. We'll do a quick walk around the outside if it's warranted at the end. Ooh, wow, there's a big wasp nest right there. I think I'm gonna start bringing my laser pointer to the showings. Okay, so let's head on in. I always tell my sellers to remove this sort of sign, because when buyers see that, it just creates this feeling of unwelcomeness, but they also immediately think, is this a neighborhood where solicitors are always pounding on the door? Okay, so it smells very musty in here. Okay, so this is the open entrance. This is the openness that you experience after you walk in. Colors are pretty intense, but it smells like it's super musty, or maybe a dead mouse. Off to the left, there's this office area, and I think this is what would function as the dining room. And then you have kitchen, pretty old appliances, kind of galley. I don't know if I'd call it galley, but it's a narrow, it's not open. It's a narrow kitchen, it's not open to the rest of the house. And it's going to be difficult to open because it's right up against the stairwell. This choice of countertop, I actually like this flake stone stuff, but it matches up pretty nicely, but overall it's in need of a pretty substantial re-envisioning. Some signs of plant maybe, or something that sat there and damaged the flooring, and these windows I think may have lost their seals. They're looking pretty darn old. So try to keep the team out of the video. Thanks for humoring me. All right, let's head on down. Okay, spiral staircase. It's gonna be fun to navigate with furniture. Okay, but cool and trendy and hip for the age. It all feels like, I don't know, 1980s Miami Vice kind of coloring. But it's bright, the colors are bright. This is a nice den or living space, but it really feels like it's sloping, and it feels like it's wet. It doesn't feel like it's wet, it smells like it's wet. It's super musty in here. Musty, moldy kind of a smell. Okay, well that's pretty neat. Countertops and shower. And the smell is really strong here. You know, it could just be the P-trap in the shower. House has been vacant so long that the P-trap dried, and that resulted in sewer gases coming up, because it sort of smells like something like that. It's beyond just a musty smell in the house. We'll make sure we notify the listing agent so they can get on it, because you know, a house that smells like this is going to be really hard to sell. And this floor is super sloped. It kind of feels like you're a drunken sailor in here. High efficiency furnace, that's nice. Pretty modern looking. And super bright orange bathroom. Solid surfaces. Decent choices of I mean, paint is not that expensive to fix, but the choices of the countertops and stuff aren't bad. And this type of flooring, I think, is the carpet that actually you can replace pieces of. These windows may just be dirty. So another tip for sellers is always have your windows thoroughly washed and sparkling clean for showings. You know, little signs of either not great quality work or maybe some mild settling, but the biggest feeling is of that uneven floor. Buyers always ask me, is that a red flag? And it all depends on how sloped things are. This carpet's pretty trashed. It's got lots of stains. Nice to have can lights. Concrete window well is definitely a plus. So with a house that has flooring that is uneven like this, at this level I would probably recommend having a structural evaluation done. And it's, like I said, not as bad as some we've seen, but it's certainly a little wonky. I think, well, the deck's pretty bad.
It needs to be completely redone.
Okay.
You can see the boards are uneven and falling down.
Okay. And yeah, the deck's pretty much shot. And you can see in the corners where nature is having its way with this house. So I would probably give this a D. Let's call it I guess we're switching to a numbering system. So 1 to 10 in terms of how well maintained it is. This is probably a 2. It needs lots of things. Oh, there's a deer that just went running from the backyard. That's nice to have a resident. But yeah, given it's not quite a 1. I've seen a lot worse, but there's so many areas of deferred maintenance, things that have just been ignored for decades probably, that this home is probably most appropriate for somebody that is ready to really spend some money and completely reskin it, replace all the finishes inside, kitchens, repaint, of course, new fixtures, probably new windows, and have the structure evaluated. I mean, it could be a pretty good deal for an off-season acquisition. I mean, it looks like the sewer line has had some work. I see the clean out there. That's always good. And definitely these window wells are not original. Well, I would not think they're original. They're concrete and they look pretty new. But the deck is rotting and it needs lots of attention. So I guess take it all for a grain of salt. I think this is probably the best kind of thing for somebody who is a GC, somebody who's willing to do a bunch of work, and who acquires this house at a pretty low number, possibly during the off season. So one of the most interesting things, and we're not going to walk around the entire exterior given its condition, but this really steep, steeply excavated and landscaped space is kind of neat, and I bet you it was cool during its day, but it also is kind of a giant pond hole, and it looks like it slopes toward the foundation, so my guess is that a new owner is going to want to either make sure there's some sort of French drain or some sort of drainage system from the bottom of that pit. Otherwise you're going to, in a heavy rain, that's going to collect a lot of water. I don't see signs of water damage on that trim, but it would not surprise me if that's an ongoing issue. Team's still in the house. I don't know if they're looking for me, but it's okay. They can come out when they're done. Let's go walk over this way. I mean, it's such an interesting custom design. It's, you know, it's definitely not a standard house, but it needs a lot of love at this point. If I had to guess, I would say a $200,000 to $300,000 kind of budget would make this into something more in line with the market, and it quite well could be worth that investment. But it's not for somebody that's looking for a light cosmetic project. This is a much more substantial project. I would hire a GC, a designer, make sure the vision is unified and somebody is holding accountability that that vision is actually gets created. Because managing the number of subs that would be required on the siding design work, and that's all just assuming, of course, there is nothing wrong structurally, which I'm not sure is the case. Definitely would want to look closely at the structure with that structural company. Anything on a steep hillside like this really needs a much closer look than a home on a flat lot. So I think that wraps it. So I think that's the end of it for 1615 Gillaspie. Normally I wouldn't encourage buyers to consider a busy road like Gillaspie, but the views to the park, the location next to the park, all of that makes it attractive, but the deferred maintenance on this one, the amount of work needed to bring it to a standard of a $1.2 to $1.5 million house is gonna, at least 300 is the ballpark that I would expect to invest, and the location will likely support that, but it takes the right buyer for a project like this. It's definitely not for everybody. All right, I'm Osman with House Einstein. Thanks for joining me, and we will see you next time.